Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. About 4 or 5 hours ago, I tweeted out the overnight ratings for yesterday's edition of Doctor Who. And I said I'll follow up with a video later. Why later? Why couldn't I just do a video then? Well, I also needed to wait for another rating to come in, which was the consolidated numbers from week 1. And they have just landed, so I now have a fully realized rating for the first episode of Doctor Who FLUX, and we have an overnight rating for the second episode. So before we go into those, as ever, this being the second time I've done this, I'm going to give a brief review of the actual episode itself before I go into the ratings discussion. If you want a more in-depth review, myself and Gary from Nerdrotic, after the episode airs on a Sunday over on his channel, so go over there after this video, please. We do a stream where we go into the nitty-gritty of everything. So again, after this video, go check out that stream, and we'll go into quite a bit more detail. So as a overview of this week's episode, I was kind of very frustrated by this. It definitely felt more like Doctor Who, but it was the additional cast, it was the guest stars, which made it feel that way. And I felt that this episode was boring for the most part, and that unfortunately was due to two major factors: A, the pacing of the episode, and B, the performance by Jodie Whittaker. I just don't buy her in any capacity as the Doctor. She's never delivered anything whatsoever resembling the charisma, the gravitas that the Doctor commands at any stage. And it's really the frustrating element came because in this week's episode, she was next to two major co-stars. The first one playing Mary Seacole, who was the creator of the British Hotel in the Crimean War. And then the second, which was a fictional general, General Logan, who seemed to be attached to the Light Brigade, even though there was no cavalry in this, but never mind. General Logan, who also played a very good role. Both of those guest stars were very good. They acted very well. They really tried to kind of get into the swing of the episode, whereas it was Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, which was just flat. And at times her dialogue was so kind of contradictory and judgmental that the Doctor themselves came across as a twat, you know? But that's Jodie Whittaker's Doctor through and through. Just a contradictory mess. So to give it like an overview, after the flux penetrated the TARDIS, misses last week, Jodie Whittaker, Yaz, and Dan, they wake up in the middle of a battlefield in the Crimean War. There they are met by Mary Seacole, who thinks they're looting, but they're not. So she takes them back to the British Hotel, which is an actual place that she constructed during the Crimean War. And then Yaz and Dan both vanish through time. Why? Wait, I can't answer this question. Drinker, can you answer this one for me, please?
Sure as. Don't know.
Exactly. Don't know. Well, if I had to put an answer to it, it would be because they needed to go to plot. They needed to go to plot areas to do plot. It was daft and it was stupid. And they just vanished, so it left the Doctor on his own, because the Doctor's a man. And so we get Mary Seacole, we get the introduction of General Logan, and then we discover that they're not fighting against the Russians. They're actually fighting against the Sontarans. And Russia isn't a place, nor is China. It's all Sontar. So during their time when they were knocked out, there has been a temporal shift. And the Sontarans have replaced Russia and China. However, both Mary Seacole and General Logan can retain the word Russia. So so the Doctor concludes it must be a recent temporal incursion if they can still remember the word Russia, even if it means nothing to them. There is a Sontaran prisoner at the camp, which the Doctor tries to get information out of, and then sends back to the camp to tell them that the Doctor's here. Now, the Doctor, of course, has faced the Sontarans many times, and he knows what it means to send a Sontaran prisoner back. It's a death sentence to the prisoner. So the Doctor knows that they're sending them back, and they're going to be killed. Now, you just got to take that into consideration for some contradictory waffle from the Doctor later on. Yaz appears at a Temple of Atropos or something, and John Bishop Dan appears back in Liverpool. Now, I know that Chris Chibnall was brought up in the Merseyside area, but he seems to have a disdain for Liverpudlians. He seems to think they're all just stupid and scallywags. Now, the people who have just responded in the comment section that they are, stop it, naughty. But there doesn't seem to be a sort of kindness with his sort of jibes. It does seem to be. It just kind of comes across as a little bit malicious. But there you go. I mean, having spent a lot of my time during that, a lot of my youth in that area of the country, in that part of the country, with my grandparents living there, it just felt as if he was being really off with the people of Liverpool, kind of making them all feel like thickos and idiots and yeah, whatever. So I can't take Dan's character seriously because Chibnall's not writing him as a human being. He's writing him as almost a parody of a human being. He arrives back in Liverpool. Liverpool's been taken over by the Sontarans as well, because this is a temporal incursion. So it's happening across multiple time frames. There's a curfew that's been imposed because everyone's in their houses, and then he's just in the middle of the street, and a group of Sontaran soldiers, I don't know how many, let's just say for argument's sake 10 to 16 or so, start chasing him, shooting at him, can't hit a barn door, and then he turns around a corner, and then suddenly there's only two of them. And the other 10 to 14 have vanished. And then they both get knocked out. And it's Dan's parents, coincidentally. It made no sense. And they just had a conversation like they're fictional, moronic characters. Never mind. Yaz, by the way, appears at the Temple of, like I said, the Temple of Atropos or something. And why she appears there, I mean, I could get Drinker to come back again and say, don't know. But don't know why she would appear there. Because plot has to happen. And there's a little robot who's asking if she can repair a machine. Discount Killmonger is already there. And he was asked if he could repair the machine. And it's these women who are sort of like plugged in and they're from the planet Time. Oh, by the way, yeah, of course they're women. You don't get men doing anything in these fucking shows anymore, do you? And they can't fix it. I'm trying to do a long story short here. The Doctor meets up with the Sontaran leader and tries to call for a peace, which isn't going to happen because Sontars don't do that. And the British general's just like, no, we're going to fight them. And so the Doctor is forcefully removed from the battlefield while the English fight the Sontarans and get summarily wiped out. The general returns back to the British hotel, discombobulated, and asks for the Doctor's help. And she looks at him like a piece of shit because this is a doctor that despises white men and looks down at them at every given opportunity because the BBC is a racist piece of shit organization now and a discriminatory one as well. Don't worry about that. That's just by the by. Another good thing happens, which is the return of the villains, who are now have another one with them called the Passenger, who's all covered up, so we don't know who the Passenger is or what they look like. Could be Omega. Dunno. I mean, these villains, we're kind of looking at them from the scope of Gallifrey, but ultimately these could be from the scope of the Doctor's forgotten lives before she got picked up by Tayun and then massacred time and again for regeneration ability. So we don't know quite what they're going to be, but the actors playing them, the actor and the actress playing the Azure and I can't remember what the other one was called, Savage or something, were great. They were good. And they seemed to really be enjoying their roles, and they felt like Doctor Who villains, and they felt menacing, which was good as well. They felt like they are a threat, which is good. And Yaz, by the way, who's a 30-year-old woman, who, by the way, introduced herself to Discount Killmonger as a member of the police after last week saying that she'd left the police. Don't worry about it. Chibnall didn't. As a 30-year-old woman has written WWTDD on her hand like a child. And then she looks at it, and it stands for What Would the Doctor Do, which you probably could have guessed, which makes Yaz look like an absolute infant. But infantilization of minority races is something that the BBC like to do because, of course, it's a bunch of white Karens and white feminist males who are sexual predators who think that they're allies, and by allies, they're superior to these minorities, and therefore they need to uplift them because they're too unable to do it themselves. Because the BBC, if I didn't tell you folks, is a racist, bigoted organization now, disguised as far left ideology, of course. And so one of the villains mocks her for that. Good. She needed mocking for that. It was pathetic. The Doctor launches, they work out that the Sontarans have to recharge. So the Doctor takes Mary, the General, and some of the remaining troops to go and sabotage their ships so that they can't recharge. And if they can't recharge, then they can't fight. So there you go. What the Doctor didn't do, because they are fucking stupid, is see that the General brought about 15 barrels of gunpowder with him. Now, considering they had a 7-minute window to recharge, there's no way that they could have got barrels across. So they had to take the barrels with them of gunpowder when the Doctor was moving to their base. So the Doctor missing that is because, I don't know, they were too busy sniffing their own farts or too busy feeling superior to plebeians. So anyway, they sabotage the ships. The Sontarans can't recharge. And so they say, right, we're going to have to we're going to have to strategically retreat. And then the general lights a fuse and all this gunpowder all lights up. And he's like, this is for all the soldiers that you massacred. And then the doctor who sent a Sontaran back to be murdered, by the way, then shouts at the general because she said they were retreating, even though moments ago the Sontaran general said to the doctor, we'll strategically withdraw, but we're coming back. So they said that they were going to come back for a Sontaran means to attack and invade. But the doctor screams at the general, because he's a white man, for blowing up the Sontaran ships and killing them, for avenging the deaths of his soldiers, and then says, I wonder why I have anything to do with the human race at times. And I'm just like, go fuck yourself, doctor. Fuck off. You hypocritical piece of shit. You sent one back to get killed, and then she sods off back in the TARDIS to where Dan is, and Dan and Dogman have gone to the Liverpool docks, nicked one of the Sontaran ships, and then smashed it into the rest of the Sontaran ships, causing, and this is a quote from Doggo, a temporal explosion which wipes them from history. So they just gone and wiped a ton of Sontarans out of history with a temporal explosion, and the doctor's she's like, okay, don't care. So what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander, and then says to Dan, hey, do you want to come get Yaz with me? Because this doctor is a hypocritical piece of shit. That's why. And that's why episodes like this, where people go, oh, it wasn't that bad. No, when they start making no fucking sense and have no fucking consistency and have a really bad pacing, they end up being boring and frustrating because this doctor is a piece of fucking shit. Anyway, they go to the Temple of Atropos. I don't fucking care. And the villains are there, and they're just like, oh, doctor, come here. And anyway, Discount Killmonger and Yaz have been put into this machine with the other women to repair the broken women. And then they say, hey, we're going to turn this machine on. How long do you think it's going to be before the power evaporates your friends? Let's find out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Click. End of episode. Next week, Yaz is fine. Discount Killmonger's fine. So where is the cliffhanger? When you just show immediately after the credits, they're both fine next week. BBC are dumb as fuck. So yeah, it was a frustrating episode with some good performances by the non-main cast. Because Yaz put in her perfect wooden performance. Like I said, Dan is a comical character. It's not even a human being. They're just a comical, ridiculous, unfunny character. The Doctor is god-awful, and Discount Killmonger's done nothing in 2 episodes at all. So, let's get on to the ratings for this week. Yes, it lost 500,000 viewers. 500,000 viewers from the first week to the second week. There or thereabouts. Give or take, 30,000 or whatever. Which was awful. Now, some people are going, oh, it's because of Bonfire Night. No. Bonfire Night was Friday. Most Bonfire Night parties are on the Friday night or the Saturday night, not the Sunday night. If people want to use that excuse, that is going to get shown off next week in the consolidated figures, which, of course, I don't think they will be. Because if we look at the consolidated figures for last week, we see that Jodie is back to her typical consolidated, which is about 1.2 million. So last week, when some people were saying, well, it was a low figure because of Halloween. No, had nothing to do with Halloween or anything like that whatsoever. These are just pure excuses by people. So Jodie brought in only about 1.2 million consolidated, giving her a final figure of 5.69 million for the premiere episode. Compare that to last year's. Last year's consolidated was 6.7 million. On the premiere episode, 6.7 million. This 5.69, well, it doesn't beat that. You know, it comes in, it would be third. This is the special, so I'm not counting that. That would have been third, which is not good. And then, with this bringing in a 3.96 million overnight, which, by the way, is the 5th lowest overnight of Jodie Whittaker's run. And if it does a consolidated of around 1.2 million, then this is going to be, what, 5.1? And when you're at 5.1 million on consolidated, you are just a stretch away from hitting these really bad, the worst, you know, some of the worst Doctor Who figures they've had in, well, ever. Particularly the Timeless Child one. That was whoo. And you're only 200,000 away from hitting this kind of stuff here. And that's 2 episodes in. 2 episodes in. 500,000 lost from week 1 to week 2. And I said week 1 was a really confusing, all over the place episode. So if you were a casual viewer and you thought, hey, let's give Doctor Who a try, and you tuned into last week's episode where it was just all over the place because it's setting things up for episodes down the line, because Chibnall's thinking too far ahead instead of getting a nice, concise first episode together. No. So, not surprised at all. I think this episode was better than week 1's episode, but like I said, I think this was carried by the guest stars, not by the main cast. The main cast proved to be the worst thing about the show. Worst thing about the show. So there we go, folks. Hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media and YouTube for live streaming links. They're in the description box down below, and I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care.